Hey you, yeah you, who decided to click on this video and check out a PoE2 video about a minion build? Well, I've got news for you, pal. That's exactly what we're going to be doing. So let's break down the basics first. So what we have here is a Lich for the ascendancy. I wanted to go that route because it was going to be a hybrid, partial curse bot, partial minion build. And the reason why I wanted to go with a curse bot or a borderline support character is because my brother and I were playing together, and so we're doing a lot of duo play this league. So I wanted to pick a character that would be able to best support him. And for those of you that are wondering, he went with a Marauder build, which will actually be seeing just a couple minutes of the exact same fight against the Uber Arbiter of Trash here in the next few minutes. And if you would like any information on that, definitely feel free to ask away. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions about his build. His build does a lot more damage than what mine does, but at the same time, I had built mine as a support character who can also run pretty much all content in the game. I spent most of my time running Abyss and Ritual along with Breach, and I mostly did that because I didn't play in Point 2 or Point 3. I didn't partake in any temple this league at all outside of the campaign. Not because it wasn't the best currency maker in the game, of course, but because I hadn't played any of the other content in PoE2. So I wanted to give all that a shot. And I did pretty well this season, playing Second Trials and Breach and Abyss along with Ritual. Made more than a few thousand divines and had overall pretty great time. And if you're looking for the cost of this particular build, adjusted for inflation, it's between 1,500 and 2,000 divines. Now, I did craft a number of my own pieces early on, and it was still very strong then. But fortunately, I was able to get him to the point where I could afford a lot better gear and give him quite a few nifty upgrades. And so that was quite nice. So now let's move on to the type of skeletons or minions that are within his army. I decided to ultimately land upon the skeletal storm mages. The main reason for that is because of the instant projectile and of course the shock that they can apply. Originally I had gone with skeletal arsonist. I was using the multi-shot, which I do believe has the ability to overlap, and the damage was about comparable, but as you can see here, some of the shots don't always land, especially with how much some of these enemies move around. Of course I have at least one skeletal cleric, a couple skeletal warriors, and then a couple skeletal snipers. And I use them predominantly for their command skill, to be able to put down the gas cloud, which can then be ignited by the skeletal arsonist and then detonate. And so ultimately comes out to about 500 to 700,000 DPS. It's not a ton, but he does make a very good support character. With the auras and some of the other curses that I apply and influence my teammates with, I can enhance friendly allies' damage by anywhere between 150 and 200%. So it's a pretty big multiplier. And so here in the next few seconds, we're going to move on to a clip that will showcase what it can do in team play. And I hope you guys enjoy this upcoming video.
Get it. If I want it, then I go get it. Yeah, no limit. If I want it, then I go get it. Yeah, go get it. If I want it, then I go get it. Look, no limit. If I want it, then I go get it. Make it rain, get a poncho. I got the juice in the Bronco. Baby say beat it up like a bongo. Left and right shots like a combo. If you want a problem, we can start it up. Yeah, pick a date, let's set it up. Moving like a go-do. You know how I get it done like I'm supposed to. I done counted 10,000 100 times. Started with a nickel, turned it to a dime. Back when the prime had his headline, I've been getting to it from the morning to the bedtime. Shaking when I'm baking, I be cooking them. The captain of the team put a hook in them. Where your boys at? They ain't booking them. Where you at? I'm all over the map, getting to the win. Yeah, go get it. If I want it, then I go get it. Yeah, no limit. If I want it, then I go get it. Yeah, go get it. If I want it, then I go get it. Look, no limit. If I want it, then I go get it. Closed mouth, don't get fed. Pillsbury dough, I'll be stacking up this bread. Always on go, got it locked like a dread.
Now, wasn't that a great deal of fun? Watching him dish out anywhere between 4 and 7 million damage a second against the Uber Arbiter of Trash. That's what is capable during team play. Now, granted, he has a lot of damage on his own, but the additional auras, fortunately, and with the curses, my character is a significant net add and not a detriment. So he's not reliant upon my damage as much. And, you know, as I was saying earlier, I add maybe 5 to 700k. He's 10 times that. And I more than double his damage output, which felt pretty darn good. And it just made it a lot of fun for team play. One of the things that makes a build very comfortable to play, because I know a lot of times playing PoE 2 and mapping can be stressful, the one portal, one life can become a pretty significant challenge for a lot of players. If you can run temporal chains on an aura, or as an aura, that will significantly improve the quality of life for your character. Now, I invested pretty heavily in the curses, not all the way, but my temp chains has a base of 87% effectiveness, right? Now, the cap on temporal chains is 75 on any given unit. And of course, it's cut down depending on whether it's a blue mob or a rare, and definitely uniques or, you know, the prime bosses, pinnacle bosses. So the higher you can go above 75, it's still actually significantly beneficial against harder targets, even against rares and especially those pinnacle bosses. Because, yeah, sure, you're still capped at 75 for the white mobs, but for everyone else, you can get rares slowed their action speed down to by almost 50-ish% or so. And the pinnacle bosses are between 20 and 25, depending on which one it is. So, yeah, I mean, this makes for a very comfortable style of gameplay. That in conjunction with the minions, I mean, if you wanted to play a build one hand and just kind of coast around and take your time and let your minions do the work, most things in maps can't survive 500 to 700,000 DPS. They melt pretty quick, as you can see here. We'll get into some of the skills and the gearing in just the next few minutes, but just wanted to talk very briefly about the curse portion. Now, I can apply 3 curses. I use Enfeeble, then of course I use Despair. A lot of damage that I have is converted to chaos damage, and my Despair reduces enemies' resistances by 96%, and Feeble against white mobs is almost a base of 57% or so. So yeah, very powerful curses, and I wouldn't need to use any of the curses against just traditional mobs or on traditional maps. The only time I'd ever use Despair or Enfeeble would be against the actual map boss or against pinnacle bosses to really bump up that damage. But yeah, moving on, let's go ahead and get into the gear that I was using. So for the first item of the day, let's talk about my original scepter. Now, I say my original, obviously I had several previous versions of this, but this was the first endgame piece that I had crafted. I got lucky with the fracture on it. I started with just simply a white base, slapped on a perfect transmutation, a perfect augmentation. I landed the +4, and of course I would use the essence to guarantee the allies in their presence still increase damage. And then I just kind of got lucky with the slams on some of those. Of course, I did also use a desecration device to make sure that I could guarantee 2 spirit on there. The 2 spirit's an absolute necessity. As you can see, I'm sitting on 1 spirit, so I had to have at least 59 on my current scepter based upon my other gear choices. But yeah, I had used a couple elements of whittling to try and re-roll some of the suffixes. I was unsuccessful with what I wanted. I was hoping for attack speed at the time or cast speed and just never landed it. I just continually ended up landing minion HP or some sort of attributes or whatnot. Then I re-rolled it until I landed on minion HP and elemental resistances. And I stuck with that because I had a few skill points in elemental resistances and it allowed me to roll off of that. So let's move on to my second scepter and the final one that I ended up purchasing. Now, this scepter ended up having pretty much all the modifiers that I wanted on it. It had better increased damage, still the comparable amount of spirit on there, a little bit better added damage to various attacks, which doesn't help the skeletal storm mages, but it's perfectly fine. And then I landed cast speed, because obviously that's beneficial for the storm mages. If you're going with the skeletal arsonist, you'd want attack speed, because they just use a more traditional type projectile. But that scepter, believe it or not, ended up costing around 575 to 600 divines. Seems a little bit excessive, but I was like, you know what? I was sitting on 2,000 at the time, and I didn't really know what to spend it on. So I'm like, let's just do a minor upgrade to get a small percentage in. Allies gain increased damage, then gain the attack speed for my Skeletal Storm Mages, just to get a little more juice out of them. Now moving on to the focus, I had bought this piece at incredibly late game. I had bought a much lower energy shield focus early on that only maybe had 250, 275 energy shield, somewhere in the 20 divine range. This one I ended up finding for 280 divines. Once again, all of this feels insanely excessive, but you know what? It was a 300 energy shield increase, which actually ended up giving me nearly 1,200 more ES. And of course, it also had the +2 to minion skills, and I specifically wanted the mana regeneration. And the reason why is because on my ascendancy, I have Unholy Might as an aura for my teammates if I am over half mana. But at the downside, the detriment is it drains 5% of your mana per second. And now, a lot of these curses are very costly to cast, and even on Earth was to the point where it's costing nearly 200 mana to cast as well. So you want to have sufficient mana regeneration in order to make sure you don't dip below that half point, to make sure Unholy Might is doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing and enhancing all of your allies' damage within your presence area. Now, one of my favorite pieces we'll get into here is actually the gloves. It's just a unique pair of gloves, the Prisoner's Manacles, and I use that because it enhances the slow magnitude of my temp chains. This is part of the magic as to how I get the 87%. It's a part of it, it's not the entire thing. And I got lucky with a double corruption, I say double corrupt, but a double socket on it, which allowed me to put 2 of those idols in there to enhance curse magnitude by another 10%. So I'm getting 40% slow magnitude / curse magnitude out of those gloves there, which really helps out the temporal chains. And it also helped out my other curses as well. Moving on to the less exciting items, such as the rings. It's just predominantly for the purpose of resistances, filling in gaps, wanted more mana, and it just happened to land rarity. I bought this ring partially crafted. I got lucky with a couple slams on there in terms of getting, I used a desecration and landed the rarity on there, which I don't really care about the rarity. I run 0 rarity on my build, but it was the best option of the 6 that I had choices for, so I decided to go with that. The next ring is a unique ring, the Ever-Grasping Ring Pearl Ring here. I picked this one because I wanted the additional damage as extra chaos. With me using Despair as a curse and obviously lowering resistances up to about, I think, 94 or 96%, I can't remember what I said earlier. Getting additional chaos damage to allies and presence or conversion of chaos was a big deal because that extra chaos damage is what's getting the most advantage or most use out of my curses or my damage curses. Now for the boots, there's nothing exceptional or unique there. Once again, it's just filling in gaps. Movement speed is imperative. If you're going to be fighting, especially the Arbiter of Ash, you want as much movement speed as you can get. 35% is the bare minimum, in my opinion. I add the additional 5 through an idol. And the reason why is because sometimes those particular gaps between the fire bombs coming down are so far apart that you don't want to always have to sprint, because when you sprint and then do a dive roll, you have a big chance of over-rolling the target or the objective. You're just more likely to get killed. Movement speed at that level just makes things so much more comfortable. The sprint is nice while mapping, and just the additional movement speed while mapping is nice, but it's a really big deal when it comes to fighting some of those pinnacle bosses and just being able to get away from them, or especially for the Arbiter of Ash, when you have to fit into a very tiny space and you want to make sure you don't overcorrect. You don't want to be overextending yourself to try and get there. That way you can, minimize the number of times you die while fighting him. And next we have the chest piece. This chest piece I did self-craft from scratch. I got lucky with the initial slam, and as a result of doing that, I was like, I'm going to continue working on this piece to make sure that I can continue this through endgame. Now, I know I can buy better chest pieces out there, but quite frankly, I built this one for a fraction of the cost of what it would have taken to just buy one outright. I got lucky with the desecration as well. Of course, I do the double roll for the desecration, and end up landing the T1 flat. energy shield roll, and so I decided to just continue it up based off of that. And I got a couple resistances on there, some life regen, which wasn't super useful, but at the same time I didn't really need any other resistances. And of course I had started with it because the first roll was increased energy shield T1, and then I landed 2 spirit shortly after that, T1 roll of that. And that was a big deal, and that allowed me to get an extra minion. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to keep this piece, and I rocked with it from mid-game all the way to end-game. At the time, now crafting pieces have changed significantly in terms of cost for a lot of those omens. It probably only cost me maybe 20 to 25 divs. I don't even know if it cost me that, but somewhere around there, let's just say that, to be able to craft it at the beginning. But some of those omens these days, right now, cost 40 to 45 divs if you want to re-roll some of the prefixes or suffixes on there. And so, yeah, that was a pretty lucky roll on that one. I was very happy with that chess piece. Now moving on to the amulet, I had gone through a few iterations of this. I never tried to craft the amulet. Of course, you know, whenever I pick up a good base, I would try and slam on it. Never got lucky. All the +3s I ever got were to like melee or to projectiles and things of that sort. There's never anything that I specifically needed, so I just ended up selling them off. But yeah, I started off with a +3 earlier that had some pretty decent stats on there, but I was able to find one that had better stats and things that I was looking for in terms of resistances. So yeah, I mean, just the evasion's a dead mod for me. I don't run any evasion at all. But it wasn't worth trying to find a perfect 6 modded or 6 prefix, 6 affix amulet. It's going to have everything I'd want in the T1, T2 roll or high rolls on those. So I was like, you know what? For 45 to 50 divs, this is perfectly fine. And I decided to just simply settle because all I would be able to get out of it would be more ES. And I'm sitting at almost 8,500 ES as it is anyway. So I was like, we'll move on. So talking about the helmet, my original helmet was actually one I had found on the ground. It had high energy shield. I said high. At the time, it was like 250, 275. And it was +2 to minion skills, and it had decent resistances that I was able to slam on there, and I was perfectly content with that. I actually found decent ground loot. Go figure. Big surprise. Later on, once I started making a decent amount of currency, and I'm like, you know what? I can finally probably do for an upgrade because my current helmet is only sitting around 250 to 275. I found that one. I don't remember how much it cost. I don't think it was more than maybe 20 to 25 divs at the time I bought it. But yeah, moving up to 500 ES was a big deal. All the other stats were pretty much the same, and so the only thing I was looking for was just higher ES rolls on there. And one of the biggest complaints I hear about builds is just the lack of comfort to play a build. We've already talked about some of the aspects that what makes a build comfortable. And a big part of that is what can you do to influence the mobs around you. We've gotten into using blasphemy and temporal chains. Another aspect that was a really big deal is the ability to restart your energy shield recharge faster. Now, I'm taking the mod that gives you, I think, 60% increased ES, but at the sacrifice of reducing, or I should say increasing the time it takes for your energy shield to come back. I had enough faster restart of my energy shield on gear, along with the tree, to kind of compensate for that, that it was down to 1.88 seconds. I tell you what, the difference between 4 seconds for a restart time and sub 2 is significant. And if you want to talk about having a comfortable build or a comfortable play style, having that be able to come back that much more quickly is a big deal. And that's something that will make your gameplay just that much more enjoyable and that much more relaxing. So let's get into the ascendancy. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I had gone with the Lich ascendancy. And the skills that I selected are honestly pretty self-explanatory if you're looking at a minion / a curse / support character. The first one I started with was Rupture the Soul, which cursed enemies have a 33% chance to explode when killed by you or allies, dealing a quarter of their life as chaos damage. Obviously, I went with that because I was going to be doing predominantly team play. Plus, it also helps significantly with clear when you don't have a whole lot of clear early on. And the curse that we apply to all nearby enemies, as I mentioned earlier as well, is Temporal Chains. The next one is Incessant Cacophony. I probably butchered the pronunciation of that big time. That one allows for infinite curse duration and an additional curse. That's how we got to 2. I used the skill tree to get to 3. The infinite curse duration is actually quite nice, especially when you're fighting bosses, because those boss fights are going to take between 30 and 45 seconds for some of them. For the map bosses, they may not even take that long, but let's say they take 10 to 15. The fact that I don't have to reapply curses is really nice. Reapplying curses is obnoxious, and curses are extremely expensive to cast in terms of mana, and we want to make sure our mana stays above 50%. The next one was the Necromantic Conduit, and that one is your allies and you have Unholy Might. And what Unholy Might does is you gain 30% of extra damage as chaos. And the fourth and final one was the Crystalline Phylactery. And that's the one that you put a jewel into it and it just simply doubles the modifiers on that particular jewel. So moving on to the skill tree. Now, the skill tree is one of the most important pieces you can get correct or incorrect. And, I say that you can mess it up. You can to an extent, but everything's reversible, especially if you have enough gold. And if you play T15 maps, finding gold is not a problem in any stretch of the imagination here. I don't want to get too much into which nodes I had selected. I pretty much just straight path towards curses and curse magnitude. Then, of course, anything involving minions and minion damage. And then after that, a lot of energy shield and ES. I picked a little small cluster on the right-hand side that reduced the mana cost of particular skills, so that way I can cast them without totally screwing up my mana, because it was getting to the point, kind of mid-late game, that I had to make some decisions to make some sacrifices in either ES or minion damage for the sake of trying to reduce the cost of those various casts and some of those curses, because they were getting into the several hundred realm, and it was not hard to start dipping below the 50% realm. And of course, I did select 3 jewel slots on there. I should say 2 jewel slots, and the 3rd jewel slot is in my ascendancy. I went with the Prism of Belief that is +3 to Storm Skeletal Mages. And then for the second one, it was just simply increased presence, increased minion damage, with 2 additional modifiers on there that, they bear some level of relevance, but it wasn't really that big of a deal. If you guys would like a more in-depth breakdown of the skill tree, just leave a comment and I'll be more than happy to share my POB with you. And now for this next and final segment, we're just going to do a quick drive-by of all of these skills that I had on my gem tree. And I won't go too much into the supports. I have played around with them. Of course, I use things like Rakiata's Flow. I had bought it in-game when it was 27 divines, not 197. I use Zoph's Pyre for my Skeletal Arsonist, and then of course I use, Esh's Radiance for my Skeletal Storm Mages as well. And those all help significantly with damage. Rakiata's Flow doesn't do anything against most white mobs and a lot of low-tier monsters because they don't have the resistances to really justify it. Against pinnacle bosses or map bosses, yeah, absolutely, it is very nice to be able to invert their resistances there. But is it a necessity? No. You don't need to spend 200 divs on it for the most part. It does help. It is important. But, Esh's Radiance, in my opinion, almost does just as well overall, especially since I hit them with Despair and it lowers their chaos resistance, and so that's more impactful. But yeah, it's pretty much just strictly a minion build and the curse build for the most part. Of course, I use an offering. I use the double offering to be able to enhance their damage by more damage and more attack speed. That's beneficial. I have 3 skeletal warriors, 3 sniper skeletons. Looks like 2 skeletal arsonists and then 5 skeletal storm mages. And I've been playing around with those numbers all season to try and find what I felt like was the best and most appropriate blend. And I wanted to have enough of each that in case I accidentally cast the offering on a set of skeletons that I didn't completely lose the utilization of that particular skeleton. For example, if I cast it on sniper skeletons, I want to make sure that I didn't lose on my sniper skeletons, because theirs are the only command that I use, because their command, that burst damage for that explode is, as I said, anywhere between 250,000 and 400,000 damage a burst, which is nice. And then I wanted to make sure I had at least 2 skeletal arsonists. Now, it can happen that I accidentally cast offering and it tags both of them, but it's pretty slim chance. Then, of course, 3 skeletal warriors, and I try and specifically target them during a majority of fights where I even have to cast it. But if you've been watching in the background, I don't use the offering at all unless we're fighting a target that's actually worthwhile, that can survive more than the split second that they'll be on the map. And so, yeah, that's pretty much the build. There you have it. If you made it this far in the video, congratulations. You survived 25 minutes of torment. And so, trying to be a good host here, we're going to end this on some kind of montage. It'll be a good time. I hope you enjoy, and y'all take care.
I have seen what has come and what will be. I have seen what has come and what will be.